Hello, Gilda's Club. I'm glad to see you again. Another week here on our online version of our usual fiber arts classes. This week we're doing a really cool project with some beginner weaving. We're going to be making bookmarks, or you might decide to turn it into a coaster or any other thing that you would want a small piece of fabric for. We'll be using string or yarn or whatever you have handy around the house, and all other supplies are very easy to attain. I hope that you enjoy this. So for this project, you will need some yarn or string, any kind will do. You will need some cardboard, a pair of scissors, and if you have one, a large yarn needle is very helpful. So the first thing we're going to do is create our warp. This piece of cardboard will be acting as a loom. If you look, I've already cut a couple notches on this side, but I'm going to cut some notches here too. You will want to have 8 to 10 strings in your warp, so I'm just going to match the notches I made up here down here. They can be pretty close together. If you have trouble dealing with small things, make them just a little further apart, because I don't want to create a space that's too tight for you. Okay, so I've made a couple of notches. Next, we're going to use a piece of string to make our warp. This is pretty easy. Just catch the string in one of your notches, go around, catch it again, like that, catch it, and you want these strings to lie flat, but not be so tight that you could not get a hand underneath. See? Tight, but not stretched. Let's see, how many do I have here? Because this is a pretty good width. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I'll stick with that. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll just put this down here and cut it off, ignoring it for the most part. There's my warp, all ready to weave. I've got the first color of string that I'm going to be working with here, this lovely green. I'm going to put it on my needle. You can see it's a little frayed. If you're having trouble getting it through the needle, cut off that frayed part, twist it tight in the same direction it's going, and then carefully slide it into the needle here. So you can put on as much as you'd like, but I'm going to work with relatively short pieces, not much longer than my arm, because I'm just kind of making up these colors as I go. I'm going to put a little notch in the side here, going to catch the end of that piece I just cut in there, and that's going to hold it tight when I begin my weaving. Now, to begin, you're going to go behind and then over a piece, then behind, then over a piece, then behind, then over a piece, then behind. And pull that right on through, like that. Now, to do my next row, I'm going to start by going behind and then over that piece that I just went under, behind, over, behind, over, behind, and then over. I'm going to go ahead and smoosh that down a little bit. You can see that I'm starting to weave. Now that I'm back to this other side, I want to catch this thread inside, so I'm going to go behind it, over the one I just went under. You see I'm doing the opposite of what I did on the last row every time. And that is essential in weaving. You're just catching, 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 weaving everything together. So now that I've got only a little bit left on my needle right here, it's going to start getting tougher for me. So let me just do the last of what I can with this yarn. And I'm going to cut another notch. Actually, I'll just put it in this notch, just to keep that out of the way. And I'm done with this color for now. Here we go. I'm going to add a new piece of yarn in a different color and continue my weaving. As you can see, the process is simple. It's actually a rather meditative, kind of comforting task to give yourself. You can make any kind of fabric like this. You could even potentially make yourself a belt or a scarf if you wanted to do something more involved. So here we go. You can see I ended on top there, so I'm going to start by going underneath, over the one I went under last time, under the one I went over last time. You're always doing the opposite of what you did the last round. See that in there? And you're always pressing that down nice up against your last row. I ended on top. I'm going to go under the last one. You're always catching that side one. Catching it right in your yarn there. You shouldn't be able to see this warp colored one on the side ever. It's always tucked in. So I've come to the end of my process here. I've got the last of my yarn left on the needle. I'm going to go ahead and take that off. Stick that in there. Then I'm going to carefully turn it over and cut that warp. Then going to start with one side at a time. Going to take a third of my strings here, and I'm just going to do a simple knot. Make a loop and put all those strings through. Make sure you've got them all. I'm going to try and get that as high as possible. One knot. Take my next third. make that same simple knot. Two knots. 1, 2. Then I'm going to take the last of the threads I was holding there. I'm going to take the piece of string that is a piece of my weaving here, the piece that was just hanging out here, like that. I'm going to tie that in my knot too to secure it. Now I've got 3 perfect little knots and everything is secure there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So my weaving is completely off the loom now. The last thing I have to do is take care of these little loose things here. There's a couple of ways that you can do this. Probably the simplest way, and your best option if you don't have a needle, is just to tie these with a nice double knot. Tie them nice and tight. Don't want them coming loose. Tie that, and then just trim them off very closely. The other way of doing it, if you do have a needle, is to put that loose end on the needle, look at your weaving, see if I want this to be as invisible as possible, I need to bring that around the back. Catch this loose area here. So I'll do that. I'll go around again. Whoops. I'll go around again. Then maybe I can go across. Bring that through. And then I can just trim that off. Trim it close, but careful not to cut your project. And that should be plenty secure for a piece like this. I'm going to do that with my other one here. Put that on the needle. You'll notice if you have too little on your needle, as in this is shorter than your needle, this becomes a lot harder. So when you are adding a new color, be sure to leave enough that you'll be able to weave it in. I'm covering this here. Bring it in there. Just weave it on through. And trim it off. There we have it. Some very simple weaving. You can see it's soft like fabric. You're basically weaving fabric here. I really like how you can see the color of the warp against the color of the string that you are weaving through. Maybe you want to tidy up your fringes, cut them all the same length. Maybe you like them wild, you can just leave them however you'd like. If you want your bookmark to lay flatter, you can use an iron on it. Do not turn your iron up too high, especially if you're using the acrylic. It'll just melt. Wool will shrink. Yeah, there we go. You can do so much with this process. So now that you've had a little experience with this very simplified version of weaving, I hope that you're able to do lots of other creative projects. You can see it's a simple, fun process, and what you make and what you do is up to you. The options are limitless. The potential is there to make all sorts of wonderful things. So I hope you try it. Maybe share this project with a kid in your life, and I hope that it's been a fun experience for you. So see you next week.